Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream.
Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives right after they put out important news. And trust me, this is one of those episodes. With us today, I'm happy to have back Peter Pascali, President and CEO at PyroGenesis Canada, but with him as well for the first time, Massimo Datillo. He's VP of PyroGenesis Additive, as well as VP at Sales at PyroGenesis. The company, for those of you new to the story, trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol PYR. Now, a little quick summary. PyroGenesis is a TSX Venture 50 company. They're a world leader in advanced plasma processes. I'm not going to tire you out with what that means, but this is what it results in. First, the company has contracts with some of the world's biggest companies, including the U.S. Navy for aircraft carriers. Their titanium powders for advanced 3D printing have received major orders, and was actually nominated as Materials Company of the Year based on that product. And their DROS-Right system for maximizing metal recovery from waste has generated significant success in India and around the world. But today, we're here to talk about two press releases. First, the U.S. Navy moving forward with a two-ship buy valued at approximately $12.5 million US. That contract is imminent. Second, a mutually exclusive partnership agreement with Aubert and Duval to supply plasma atomized titanium powder, we'll get to that, to the to the EU additive manufacturing / 3D printing market. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, glad to have you guys.
Peter, I'm going to start with you. You know, it's been your show at PyroGenesis. Before we get into any of the numbers, any of the contracts, how are you feeling about PyroGenesis right now? Because you put out three press releases in the first 10 days of January that most small cap companies would envy if they could do it in a year. How happy are you with how this year started off for PyroGenesis?
Static, George. I mean, things couldn't have been lining up better. As we alluded to in our press releases in the fall, this is what we thought we were heading towards, and we managed to pull it off. And that's one of the reasons why I have Massimo here. He heads up our PyroGenesis Additive Group, but he also heads up our business development group at PyroGenesis. And instead of me being excited all the time, I thought I'd bring in the guy who it's all happening under his management. So,
well, Massimo, we're finally discovering the secret weapon at PyroGenesis, because we knew it wasn't Peter all on his own. So welcome to the show, and I'm
thanks a lot, George.
Asking you a couple of questions.
It's a compliment. Yeah, Massimo's done now. Bye, Massimo. Ciao.
Peter, let's get to the
We wake up in the morning, George, and we pinch ourselves. It's just so good. Everything's lining up on all the business lines. We're very, very, very happy. Ecstatic, actually.
Well, I've been doing this for 23 years, and I've never seen the company get off to this kind of a start from a business development side in the first 10 days of January. So let's get to these agreements. Let's start with the ones that have sales figures involved. The first one, the U.S. Navy, you're announcing that order is imminent because you're advised by the U.S. Navy of a $12.5 million contract for 2 systems on 2 aircraft carriers. What does that mean for the financial position of the company to have an order of that size coming in?
Well, George, it's the largest order we will ever have penned. It's for 2 aircraft carriers. It's going to take about 12, 15 months or so. That's usually what it takes, 1 aircraft carrier. So we're going to be doing 2 at the same time. So add on several more months to that. So all that money is going to come in within that period of time. It gives a real solid base from which to work from. And it de-risks the company significantly over the period of time that we're looking at right now, which is the 12 to 15, 16, 18 month time frame.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, because that one contract alone pretty much dwarfs some of your annual revenue announcements in the past, correct? Just that on its own.
Our annual revenues over the past several years have been between $5 and $7 million. So just that alone is 12.5 over more than a year, obviously, but still it's a significant portion of the revenues that have already been locked up.
Let's talk about the reputational side, because I've got to imagine that there isn't more of a due diligence process on this planet than the U.S. Navy. So on the reputation side, not just with the U.S. Navy, but for your entire business, what does it mean to get repeat orders for U.S. aircraft carriers of this magnitude in your other businesses?
Well, it's very significant, George. As you can well imagine, the U.S. military has some of the highest standards, performance standards that you have to meet. It's not good enough that you can do it, but you have to do it the way you said you're going to do it and on time, et cetera, et cetera. And within the military group, the U.S. Navy has the highest standards because they operate at sea and they don't have the luxury of, you know, of being near a base or being able to solve problems, readily solve problems. So if you're on the U.S. Aircraft carrier, you have to perform to these higher standards. Now, you can imagine that the aerospace industry is similar. And Aubert and Duval, which we're going to talk about momentarily, targets the aerospace industry for our titanium product line. And given that we have the history and the experience of dealing with U.S. military and the U.S. Navy year in and year out over many, many years, over many, many contracts, and we're actually spec'd into the design of the aircraft carrier, gives these players a lot of comfort that we know how to perform to these most demanding standards, performance standards. So, George, it most certainly helps us establish credibility with some of the major players in the marketplace. And as I believe, well, the reason why we're able to pen, over the past several months, we penned 2 partnership agreements, if you will, with multi-billion-dollar companies. I think this speaks to the reason why we perform to the high specs. We've proven it out year in, year out. We've got repeat orders from the U.S. Navy. I don't think you can say more to that than I.
Massimo, since you're in charge, you're business development over PyroGenesis. What does this do for you on the reputation side with companies that you're talking to, that you're speccing, that you're prospecting? Because I've got to be thinking, because of due diligence, the greatest in the world, that the rest of your prospective customer base, correct me if I'm wrong, are they thinking, hey, if they pass the due diligence of the U.S. Navy to operate their plasma torch technology on U.S. aircraft carriers, then they're probably going to pass ours? Am I right in that significantly maybe shortens the sales cycle for you when you can show this kind of track record?
It's 100% correct. As a matter of fact, as you know, we're ISO 9001. We were certified a while ago, and we were able to achieve that because of the internal quality control standards that we have to be able to meet the exacting standards for the U.S. Navy. That being said, last year we announced that we also achieved AS 9100D. And the work that we did prior to that for ISO 9001 helped us significantly to basically shorten the time frame to achieve AS 9100D, which gives us tremendous credibility in the market, which ultimately was appreciated by Aubert and Duval. So it definitely helps us.
Peter, the second press release you had, it's amazing how this one I think got lost completely in the fog because the size of the other 2 agreements was this. You're awarded $1 million plus contract for a 900 kilowatt plasma torch system in Sweden. Okay, so outside of the dollar signs, which again is great way to start off the year, what's the significance of this plasma torch process in Sweden? What are you guys doing there?
So basically, George, you hit the nail on the head. In any other time period, this would have been a huge news release, but it's got lost in the noise with respect to other things we're doing. It's significant, very significant, George. What this is, what we've been contracted to do is develop a plasma torch for iron ore pelletizing. And what iron ore pelletizing is taking iron ore and concentrating it so that you can transport it cheaply, less expensive.
Okay.
The current process uses using diesel burners, and diesel burners use fossil fuels and therefore are not environmentally friendly. What Sweden has is a policy to have carbon neutral environment.
Right.
So this group has been engaged to find ways in which they can meet those standards within the iron ore pelletizing industry. So we're very confident we're going to develop a torch that does this. But what's interesting is we have our patented torch being applied to a country's problem to deal with the diesel torches, finding a replacement for the diesel torches in iron ore pelletizing. Now, this has ramifications across all over the world. They're doing iron ore pelletizing all over the world.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Say there must be other iron ore companies that have the same issue around the world that want to transfer their iron ore. So essentially, you've made them more efficient, and you've made countries more environmentally friendly. So, yeah, what are the ramifications for the rest of the world that have iron ore producers?
Well, we can just duplicate it in other places where there are iron ore pelletized. In fact, we're in discussions already with companies to copycat this torch that we're developing in their particular space.
Which competitive advantage do you think is stronger for these companies? Is the fact that you're able to reduce their transportation costs by pelletizing the iron ore, or is the fact that you're making them in this carbon, in this carbon tax environment now, is that you're able to reduce their carbon liabilities?
Well, iron ore pelletizing already concentrates the iron ore. So whether you use it with a diesel burner or a plasma torch, you get to the same end result.
Okay.
The big advantage with PyroGenesis, there's some cost advantages, but the most significant thing is you're doing it in an environmentally friendly manner.
All right, so I'm looking forward to seeing, because Canada is the epicenter of mining and resources around this world. So hopefully we'll be hearing something. I know I can't prod you with it, but hopefully we'll be hearing more about that system around the world with other iron ore companies. Let's hop over to Aubert Duval. There are no dollar figures with this press release, but arguably, Peter, I see it as potentially the biggest news ever. What excites you about this exclusive partnership agreement with them?
George, what doesn't excite me? They're a major player in the additive manufacturing industry. They have a long history in supplying powders to the automotive, aerospace industry. They have a significant distribution that we can tap into. They have boots on the ground. What really is interesting is the exclusivity, the exclusive nature of the contract.
Right.
We cannot supply titanium powder into the marketplace, and they cannot sell competing powders. So this speaks volumes to the quality of our powder and the credibility they've put into us as a powder producer and as a company that can meet their goals. For them, it's very, very significant, actually, George. If you look on their website and you look at all the different additive manufacturing metal powders that they supply, there's a void in a particular segment.
Yeah.
And we fill that void. And I'm not suggesting that this was the entire reason why as soon as they announced it, the market cap of the company went up 75 million euro, which is about 1.5 times our market cap. I think there's probably other factors obviously going into it, George, but arguably analysts who follow Aubert Duval probably saw that this void was now filled, and they extrapolated potential sales from it and new business from it, and that's why it affected their market cap. So this is very significant for us.
So the question that begs the question then is plasma atomized titanium powder, and I'm going to get to uses for that in a second, but I want to talk about Aubert Duval first. Is it that difficult for a company of their pedigree, 100 years old, multi-billion-dollar parent company? Is it that difficult for them to create that they needed PyroGenesis expertise? Why was that void there in the first place?
It's a great question, George. Great question, actually. There's a few ways to produce powders for additive manufacturing. Now, titanium 6-4 is a little bit unique. It's a reactive material, and basically what that means is when you heat it up, it wants to react with oxygen. That being said, plasma has demonstrated that it's the gold standard for producing specifically titanium 6-4. Perhaps other manufacturing methods are good for other materials, but specifically for titanium 6-4, plasma has demonstrated that it is the gold standard for producing powders of quality for additive manufacturing, for aerospace, for biomedical, and other industries also.
Now, gents, devil's advocate, for people who are listening at home, they can see the excitement watching at home. They can see your excitement. They can see that this means a big deal. But the one thing I'm sure is probably happening is you have people asking, what's titanium atomized powder? So, and it's not something that people touch and feel every day. They don't run into it, that's for sure, unless you're in these, high-level manufacturing industries. So
yeah.
Give everyone an idea of home. What is it? What's it being used for? And why are they so critical to the companies who actually need it?
Sure. So another great question, George. Conventionally in manufacturing, you remove a material from, let's call it an ingot, right? So let's say you want to make a bracket. You basically buy or pay for the whole ingot, and then you remove material to basically come up with a bracket. With additive manufacturing, it's reverse. You're putting material where you need it. Now, that being said, you need powders that are fully dense and spherical so that you can produce parts that are actually strong. You want dense, strong parts.
Right.
With additive manufacturing, we're basically producing, when you say plasma atomized powders, you can imagine small little ball bearings, tiny micron-sized ball bearings made out of titanium 6-4. And it's basically the ink in the equivalent of a printer. And you put the material exactly where you want it to essentially produce parts that are either, it could be a bracket for aerospace industries, it could be components going into engines, for example, a fuel nozzle.
Wow, so they're critical. These are real critical parts.
They're critical parts, and in the aerospace industry, for example, they call it buy to fly. So how much are you paying for that part you're producing? And with additive manufacturing, depending on the part, you're able to produce it in a more cost-effective fashion. So it's more economical to go the additive manufacturing route. Also, in certain cases with additive manufacturing, as opposed to producing multiple parts and assembling them together, with additive manufacturing, you could produce that part in one process, one step. So you're able to have more complex parts being produced more effectively, and it also allows designers to incorporate more complex features to make these parts more efficient, more effective for the aerospace, biomedical industry, or other.
So how big, Massimo, maybe you could speak to this, or either one of you, but how big, so let me ask, how big is the market right now, right, for these powders? How big is it going to get? In other words, is this just the beginning? Are more and more companies adapting 3D? I'm going to call it 3D printing, even though I know the official term is additive manufacturing at those high levels. But people, is 3D printing only going to get bigger and bigger in terms of these components and parts for the aerospace, military, all those industries? So where is it now? How big do you think it's going to be 10 years from now?
It's a very, I'll answer in multi-steps. It is definitely growing, the industry. Additive manufacturing has been around for a long time. In a commercial aspect, however, you could see that over the past 10 years, it's grown significantly. You're seeing major corporations basically adopting it and trailblazing a path really for the industry as a whole. We're really at the beginning of this sort of adoption. As far as materials is concerned, referencing some articles that are known in the industry, right now it's in excess of $1 billion, and that basically is both polymers and metals. Currently today we're seeing double-digit growth year over year, and really this is just the beginning. It's just the beginning. As more powders are being introduced to the market and more players become familiar with additive manufacturing, they're going to then basically bring it in as a complementary manufacturing method to conventional manufacturing methods. So we're really at the tip of the iceberg here.
I'd agree, George. You can imagine it's a process that not only does it reduce the cost of making parts in particular situations, but it opens up a plethora of design opportunities that didn't exist before. When you're designing something one drop at a time, you can design in wormhole tunnels that can cool a piece for cooling, where before you couldn't manufacture that. So it's a very exciting time, and as Massimo says, it's just the tip of the iceberg. We don't see it letting down at all.
And it's already $1 billion for what you guys are thinking. It's already $1 billion market.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm glad you guys brought that up, because look, even me, I think I'm guilty of thinking that the 3D printing, or in this case, additive manufacturing market, is for specialty items, maybe for product design, where you're trying different things. But it seems to me, and I guess for everyone watching at home now, that additive manufacturing, the aerospace, military, all these industries you're going after in Europe, is actually a production line. It's full production of products. It's not just specialty one-offs here and there.
That's correct.
Exactly.
And Peter, let's talk about the quality of your product. The powders are already good enough for you to get this mutually exclusive partnership with Aubert Duval. And that the crazy part of this though is that your powders are only going to get better. You know, but your product is clearly superior, else you wouldn't have been able to sign a mutual exclusive agreement with them. So, you know, where's the product go from here? How can it get even better than what it is today?
Wow, George, that's a loaded question. Well, let's look back over history. We invented plasma atomization. We were the first to make plasma atomized titanium powders. We got out of the business, and now we got back into the business. And in the short time frame where we've dedicated our resources to making powders for 3D printing, we have improved the way we have our particle size distribution, so there's little to no waste. We made significant improvements, what I'm saying. Last year, we were nominated a Materials Company of the Year. And in less than 2 years or so, we've actually teamed up with a very conservative, well-regarded company in Aubert Duval. So I believe we've hit all the buttons properly. Now, yield and production rate are two key features within the process that people have been trying to tweak over and over and over and over again, and to varying levels of success. Well, George, we're back in the game, and as I've said in the past, and we do what we say we do, our goal is to increase the yield and production rate to a point where we can make even the cheapest metal economically. My goal is to actually improve the process, continue improving the process, so that if, let's say, you have a competing process and you have it in your facility, very close by, so there's no transportation costs. I predict that PyroGenesis will, in short order, be able to produce powders anywhere in the world and transport them to you at far cheaper than you can produce them using somebody else's technology at your facility.
And that says a lot, given the fact that you've only been back at this for 2 years. You've already had this great success with Aubert Duval, nominated Materials Company of the Year last year. All sorts of other great successes. So I can only imagine what it's going to mean in terms of where you're going to be 2 years from now.
Well, just imagine what we'd be doing on our own. Now that we've partnered up with somebody like Aubert Duval, lots of doors open up.
Massimo, this question might be for you. The thing that people are thinking of at home right now, because I am, is when do you expect first sales out of this relationship? And I know I'm not asking you to pinpoint a specific date. I know it doesn't work that way, but I'm going to inject some of my own business, knowledge here and say, if it was a product that was missing in the Aubert and Aubert Duval lineup, if the market cap of the company, of the parent company, increased by $75 million the next day, and maybe not all of it was due to this relationship, I have to imagine, gents, that as soon as this agreement was signed, the first thing your partners did was call up everybody, all their customers, and say, we now have this. I have to assume that, right? Well, unless I'm wrong.
That's why I brought Massimo off the difficult questions, because if he answers it wrong, you go to jail. I'm not listening.
So they must be calling. Massimo, what does the sales cycle look for something like this? It's obviously not, the day after. It's not Amazon. You're not shipping titanium powder to somebody.
Well, it's going to accelerate our sales process. I think what's important to understand is that with any sales process, there's a qualification period, meaning we supply powders to our clients, and our clients go through, considering it's aerospace or biomedical, they go through a very stringent qualification process. Sure. So the first step is to basically get, to ensure that these clients, mutual clients, qualify the powders. We've already established that we produce a quality powder. We've already been in contact with many players in the industry. With Aubert Duval having a global network and boots on the ground, and already have a lot of credibility in the industry, it accelerates the process for us. It brings a powerhouse along with us to basically bring our powders customer-facing in aerospace and biomedical. So we do expect sales in short order. That being said, we can't provide that specific type of forecast if it's going to be in a quarter or in 2 quarters, for example, but we do expect it in a much more accelerated fashion with Aubert Duval as opposed to going it alone.
George, if I may just add, when you look at the union of PyroGenesis and Aubert Duval, it's very interesting because Aubert Duval has a menu of metal powders they are providing to the industry. And so they're already in the door. And now when you add in our powders, it's a one-stop shop. Whereas some of the other technology, the other people that use plasma-based technologies, they produce a few powders. They're not a one-stop shop.
Right.
So Aubert and Duval and PyroGenesis partnership enables us to leapfrog the industry, get into the door with as part of a whole menu of product line that they're already in the door talking about. So how does it speak to sales? I think based on what we were thinking of in the past, it clearly will accelerate the opportunities for us to sell into the marketplace with a credible player. So it benefits both Aubert Duval and PyroGenesis in a very unique sense. It's like a hand in a glove. It's a perfect union.
And I also find it very, I'm not sure if many people pick this up in the press release. I also find it very telling that this is mutually exclusive, which means you can't sell to anybody else in Europe, and neither can Aubert Duval buy titanium atomized powders from any other provider. So what does that say, guys, about how strong the relationship is?
That's right. You cannot sell a competing product.
Last question on this. Last question. This is a mutually exclusive partnership in Europe. Obviously, we've got Asia, we've got North America, we've got other very strong regions around the world. So any chance that this leads to similar partnerships in other major regions like that?
Well, we can't speak to specifics, George, but you can imagine that having teamed up with Aubert Duval, who, again, I don't want to keep on repeating, who are very conservative, they're well known in the marketplace,
of course,
to some degree validates what we've been saying in our press releases for some time now. We're not going around knocking on doors, George, who wants to be in Asia, who wants to be in North America. What typically happens, it's a fallout of a conversation, which usually starts, would you like to usually it starts, would you like to sell us a system? And we say, no, we're not in the business. Well, how about powders? And then it develops that way. And I don't think I'd be saying anything out of school by telling you these are natural conversations that have been taking place over the past year. I mentioned it in our press releases that we're speaking to several people about these type of things. And I don't think I'd be, again, talking out of school if I told you the recent press release with our partnership with Aubert and Duval gives a lot of credibility to what we're offering.
All right. So I won't prod you anymore, but that to me says almost stay tuned. So, we'll stay tuned. Gents, last question. Peter, this is actually probably for you. So we're done with the agreements. Again, gentlemen, congrats to your whole team because any one of those agreements, most small cap companies would be jumping up and down as fantastic, business development feats. And you got 3 of them in the first 10 days. But Peter, what's even more amazing about this, and I got to ask you, this is your second partnership with a multi-billion-dollar corporation. The first one was in November, less than 2 months from the announcement of Aubert Duval. That was with the Japanese trading house, multi-billion-dollar for your DROS-RIGHT system, and that was a global partnership. And now you've signed this deal with your European partners, whose parent company is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. What's happening at PyroGenesis? Are you now growing out of your skin as that small, really great, technical company in Montreal and departing onto your next, major evolution? What's going on with you guys, and how does the rest of this year look? Because I've never seen something like this.
Well, to be honest with you, George, it shouldn't be really unexpected because I've been actually announcing and alluding to these type of relationships in my press releases for some time now. It just takes a lot longer than somebody may think who's not involved in these type of conversations. It's not like, okay, let's sign the deal. You want the powders, you want the exclusivity. There's lots of conversations. There's lots of trips. There's due diligence. There's making sure it fits. And the other thing we found, George, is teaming up with multi-billion-dollar entities like the U.S. Navy with our environmental offering, the multi-billion-dollar Japanese trading company for Drossrite, Aubert Duval for additive manufacturing. It's a strategy that we find it works well for us. And I think we're going to continue doing these type of strategies where we team up with somebody that needs us, is big, and gives us a clear advantage in the marketplace. So you're going to see more of these type of things happening, I believe. I don't know, over the next week, month, year, but it's a clear strategy that's proven it works well with us, for us, and I think you'll see more of that.
Well, I can tell you from my experience, one multi-billion-dollar partnership is an unbelievable feat for small cap companies. Two, I've never even heard of that. And it's funny how you categorize it. You almost take it as if, well, it was part of our strategy, and we're kind of telegraphing it, and it's here.
Yeah.
What you don't realize, because you're at PyroGenesis, that's where your focus is. For the rest of us who are really involved in the small cap space, there are a lot of companies, Peter, that hint towards what they may be doing, what they're trying to do, and they've got big dreams, and they legitimately think it, right? They're not being, there's nothing nefarious about it. But you're able to pull off not one but two in less than 2 months. So
George,
that's unbelievable.
We would have probably preferred to be more evenly distributed over the past year, but it's all coming at the same time. It provides its own unique challenges. However, having said that, again, we weren't. It didn't take us by surprise. It takes time for these conversations to develop, and so I think we're prepared for it, and we're very excited about 2019. Very, very excited.
Well, distributed or clustered, the one thing remains true. It's the first 10 days of January, and you hit it out of the park with 3 major contracts. So
thanks, George.
Congratulations to you, Peter. Yeah. Massimo, congratulations to you on the sales side. And I speak for everybody, I'm sure, when I say congratulations. And let's see. Usually at this part, I'd say, let's see what you can do for the rest of the year. I would have put the pressure on saying, let's see what you can do for the rest of the month.
Oh, George, there's only 10 days left.
No, but all kidding aside, congratulations, and I look forward to seeing what PyroGenesis is going to do throughout the rest of 2019.
George, great being on the show again. Look forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you very much, George.
Thank you, gentlemen. You've been watching Peter Pascali, President CEO of PyroGenesis Canada, as well as Massimo Datillo. He's VP of PyroGenesis Additive, as well as VP of Sales at PyroGenesis. The company trades at the TSX Venture Exchange under the stock symbol PYR. To do more due diligence, get to Agoracom, punch in the company's name or stock symbol, take a look at all the profile information. It's all summarized greatly there for you. Take a look at all the company's past news. Watch the videos we've done with Peter, because what he said the company's going to do, he's actually doing. And finally, what I really love about what's going on there is Peter has a verified discussion, CO verified forum there. You can post your questions and you'll get your answers directly from Peter. And that says a lot when a company is that open accessible. So use that tool for your due diligence. Thanks for watching, everyone. Guys, thanks again for being here. Have a great day, and we'll talk to all of you soon.